Welcome to the channel. I want to bring up a topic of discussion today. The idea that Ford has had a dramatic impact on the price of fuel with the innovations introduced in the F-Series trucks. We got the 2.7 liter EcoBoost right here in my wife's 2019 F-150. And we got the 3.5 liter EcoBoost here, 2018. This is my F-150. And just thinking about the technology under the hood of both of these trucks, I think that Ford had a significant impact on what we're paying for a gallon of gas today. If you think back to 2012, around that time, gas prices were extremely high. I remember I had a 2004 GMC Sierra, and it was incredibly expensive to fill that truck up with gas. I remember actually buying a bicycle because it was just too expensive for me to put gas in the truck. So I literally bought a bicycle just to get around town when I wasn't driving to work. And part of the issue at the time was the amount of fuel the world was consuming compared to the amount that it was producing. Bottom line, supply and demand. I mean, sure, there are some artificial forces at work, things like taxes and fuel taxes and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, the price of a gallon of gas is ultimately determined by supply and demand. You think back to 2012, at that time there were no SUVs, trucks that really had efficient engines, and if there were anything decent available as far as how efficient the vehicle was, it wasn't a very popular vehicle. Here's a look at our 6.2 Super Duty, and this truck is incredibly hard on gas. It's got the 6.2 liter gas V8. Basically, all pickup trucks had engines similar to this one, just a regular port injected V8. This truck gets probably 12 to the gallon if you're lucky. Maybe 13 or 14 if you really drive it light. That's kind of what the light truck and SUV marketplace looked like just as soon as 2012, 2013. But Ford introduced the EcoBoost, and I believe around 2012, around that time. And at the time when it came out, it was definitely more efficient than a V8, but it wasn't as efficient as it is now. And that's why, just thinking about everything Ford has done as far as making vehicles more efficient, they've definitely been industry leaders in setting a trend for better fuel economy. Coming out with the EcoBoost, the original 3.5 liter EcoBoost, and then coming out with the 2.7 after that, incredibly efficient, and then selling millions of vehicles, selling millions of trucks, primarily pushing the 2.7 and the 3.5. Could you imagine if the most popular vehicle still had a large V8 available as its main engine? That could have a dramatic impact on prices, because it would certainly have a dramatic impact on demand. If all these F-150s were gas hogs, I don't know if they'd still have as much marketplace dominance as they do now, but you can certainly agree that as a country, we'd be using a lot more fuel if these trucks weren't available. And who's to say if GM or Chrysler would have jumped on board and had a product as successful as the Ford F-150, or offered something as efficient as an F-150, because they're not really doing it right now. The Dodge, you can't compare the efficiency of a Dodge to a Ford or Chevy. They've recently just came out with their 2.7 liter 4-cylinder engine, but it hasn't been out for a long time, and really they're responding to Ford being the first to introduce a small displacement turbocharged engine in a truck. Also, on top of going with extremely efficient engines, they've turned the entire cab from steel to all aluminum, which greatly lowers the weight and greatly increases the efficiency of the vehicle when the other manufacturers are just trying to catch up. And that's how Ford has stayed on top. Now, I know a lot of people can argue that the Dodge has better interiors and maybe the Chevy has some other features that the Ford doesn't have. But one thing that neither one of those competitors or any other light truck and SUV producer can come close to is the fact that Ford has come out with an all aluminum body, which weighs less than any of the competition, further making these vehicles more efficient. But you got to wonder how many millions of gallons of gasoline have been saved by making these extremely popular vehicles more efficient, making them lighter. And even though most people hate start-stop technology, it's making it standard across the board first. Even though most people don't want it and there's workarounds for it, the idea that this many vehicles would be saving fuel by turning off whenever the vehicle stopped has certainly had a profound impact on the amount of fuel as a country that we are able to save. Now, the average person might not notice a benefit from start-stop technology, but on a macro scale, there's certainly savings from having this technology. And not only just to be an environmentalist or talk about saving, the planet and carbon emissions and things like that, I'm interested in the idea that supply and demand comes into play in a major way when you're talking about fuel prices. When you look at a barrel of crude oil, most of that barrel is going to be gasoline. 20% or so is going to be gasoline. Small percentage goes to diesel, maybe like 10%, around there, and kerosene, jet fuel, things like that. And we need all these things. So the idea that we can just stop drilling for oil is kind of tough, because we still need so many different fuels from oil. And when you drill for oil, you just don't drill for gasoline or just diesel or just kerosene. You kind of get all of it. You refine it and it becomes all these different products. So we're still in many ways dependent on using oil. But as a consumer of a vehicle, it's important for me to be able to afford gasoline, afford the fuel for the vehicle, so I can go places. And by reducing the demand, you're lowering the price, because if you think about it, gasoline has a shelf life of about 3 to 6 months, and if you don't burn it, you have to use it or you lose it, and it loses its potency. It's expensive to store, it's dangerous to store, fires could happen. It's really in the best interest of the gasoline companies to keep the product moving and keep it flowing, so that fresh products coming in and the older products are leaving out. They can't save gasoline forever. They have to keep it flowing. So that's why supply and demand comes into play so much when it comes to gasoline. And by lowering our usage, we are in fact lowering the price. And it's kind of a uphill battle to fight when you're talking about lowering the usage of gasoline, because we got countries in Asia that have billions of drivers who are just getting into an economic situation where they can afford vehicles, and that's going to create more stress on the oil production for the entire world, and that's going to create more demand for oil, for gasoline, for all these products that you get from crude oil. And that's potentially going to increase the price, because so many new consumers are going to be coming into the market to consume oil. So even though it seems like gas prices are high, I know a lot of people are frustrated with the price of gas. In my opinion, they're actually low. they're lower than they were in the past, and even though they seem high, they're still affordable for the average American. Certainly a lot better than things were back in 2012, 2008. Things were pretty bad right before the economy crashed. But these new consumers coming in from third world countries, from countries in Asia, places in Africa that are just now becoming consumers of gasoline, places in India. The price of gasoline could potentially go up in the future. And now what I would like to see is competitive fuels coming into place, like hydrogen, like electric, to further compete with gasoline. But I certainly don't want to see gasoline go away for a long time, because I enjoy gasoline engines. I also think electric engines are cool, and it'd be nice to have both types of vehicles in the marketplace. But anyway, comment below, let me know your thoughts. That's it for today's video. Have a great day, and hope to hear from you soon. Goodbye.